We're staying with the updates from the All Progressives Congress. The screening committee has now trimmed down the number of APC presidential aspirants from 23 to 13. Public Affairs Analyst BIODUN Sowunmi joins me on the news tonight. Are you shocked by this latest development?
No, absolutely not. In the first instance, the idea of having 23 people in the race to me seems to be a mechanical the process of people being induced to come out for different reasons. And therefore, at the end of the day, they've got to put them down to a manageable proportion. But what I'm not expecting was the remark, made as reported by Premium Times, by the chairman of the screening committee, John Oyegun, passing a comment about a particular candidate that refused to sign a withdrawal form ahead of screening. That to me already indicated a different agenda completely from the screening process. So more or less, it won't come as a surprise if at the end of the day they are working towards a particular answer through the screening. You cannot expect people, look, when you look at what the Constitution says, the Electoral Act and the APC Constitution only allows for 3 different methods of choosing a presidential candidate. One is direct primaries, indirect primaries, and consensus. There is no room for selection within the APC Constitution. If you take into account what the president said before traveling, he was clearly, obviously talking about selection when he was asking the governors for their consent, for their support, to choose his own preferred successor. So the idea of people signing withdrawal form in the first instance is aimed at achieving that very purpose, which in my view, I don't think is legal. I think it will only create democratic deficit in the internal democratic system, political party democratic system. We should not be going towards that. We should be allowing even all the aspirants, to contest for that election. We
don't know which of the candidates have scaled through this process yet, because Mr. Oyegun did mention that he would allow the NWC and indeed the chairman of the party to make that known publicly. But he did say that all of them passed the basic requirements by law, and I think he was making reference to age and educational qualification. Do you think that all of these aspirants were also privy to what the qualification standards were for the party before the screening exercise?
Absolutely. In fact, that's the point I'm making. Initially, when the chairman of the screening committee made clear that all of them passed the screening, they should have allowed them to simply go into, to contest elections. So what's the point in subjecting them to extra constitutional requirements, things that are not in the Constitution, they are not in the Electoral Act? The idea of people signing withdrawal form ahead is not in the Electoral Act. It's not even in the APC Constitution. What is the point in subjecting people to that, extra requirement, extra legal requirement? So in my view, I think the whole thing, smells somehow. If you say all of them passed the basic requirements of the Constitution, then we're asking for extra requirements.
I'd like to turn your attention to another statement made by Mr. Oyegun, and it has to do with consensus. According to him, 98 to 99% of the aspirants agreed that the party is supreme as long as they are consulted and carried along as to what direction the party is headed. Why do you think the APC would want a consensus arrangement, particularly when you look at the fallout of the previous convention? We've seen PDP go ahead with its primary election. I mean, it was, at least to an extent, we could see the voting take place, and before midnight, a candidate was decided for. Why would you think that the party wouldn't allow every aspirant to test his or her popularity out in a normal election?
Well, that is the strange thing in the whole arrangement. When you look at what even the APC Constitution says, it didn't ask for consensus by all means. It gave 3 options: direct primaries, indirect primaries, or consensus. And that consensus is subject to a condition that all aspirants agreed. If all aspirants fail to agree, even if it's only one aspirant that failed to sign the withdrawal form, before election, before the primaries, then they are required to go through indirect elections or direct elections. Those are the clear interpretations of the Constitution of APC, clear provisions of the Electoral Act. What is actually going on, it's novel. It's a novel idea of asking people to sign withdrawal in advance of any screening. So basically what it means is, if you refuse to sign, are they going to say you fail screening even though you meet all the requirements of the Constitution? So this is a major issue. It depends on the excuse that will be given at the end of the day. If they say I fail screening, so on what basis are they going to refuse to tell people the basis of failing people, after the chairman of the screening panel disclosed that all the aspirants met the constitutional requirement? So that is the issue. And in any case, if the Electoral Act or any provision of any party's constitution violates the constitution, any provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic, then it becomes null and void. So therefore, the idea of bringing in a novel idea, you have to sign withdrawal in advance in order to encourage the selection of one candidate. That is not consensus. Consensus is if we all agreed, that we would subject ourselves to this. But where a candidate differs, then you have to conduct election. Don't forget, from all the readings, from what I read about what Mr. President said, he is actually talking about selection.
Let's talk about,
also,
yes.
That is also alien, to the APC constitution, in my view.
But beyond asking the governors to be able to pick a successor, he also made reference to the second-time governors, that they were allowed to do the same thing. But what further intrigues are we expected to see? For instance, at what point do we know who the president is actually talking about, and what are your expectations in the coming days? Oh,
this is a country of 200 million people. We cannot, look, it does not help the cause of democracy. It does not deepen democracy in any form to say one person would have to select the president of a country, not even a political party, not even after. Don't forget the context of all this. Initially, we were supposed to have statutory and ad hoc delegates. That's a wider representation of the political party, to determine who will be. One way or the other, they managed to get rid of the statutory delegates, now leaving only the ad hoc delegates. That's a very tiny percentage of members of the political parties. So, and even on that, we have the opposition party still conducting primaries, allowing people to contest and conducting primaries. Even permit me to make a reference to 2015. The president contested primaries against Atiku. There was no idea of it has to be a selection, it has to be one person. Let us even agree, let's give that the president alluded to the fact that, some governors were allowed to pick their successors. Is that the right thing that we should be pursuing at the federal level, in a multicultural country, in a multi-ethnic country? Is that the right thing at this point in time when, the country is highly heated with ethnic divisions? Is that the right thing to pursue? And then say one person should decide who will be, rather than allowing members of the political parties, to decide who they want to be the presidential candidate. It's a good place to leave it. In the coming days, it will become clearer, for instance, those who made it to that screening list, and also the direction that the APC is taking. Public Affairs Analyst Sowunmi, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. My pleasure. Thank you.